She left for a moment, and when she returned, all was arranged. "The respected Dr. Pellerat will be taken to Manoli," she said, "and the respected Madame Bliss, together with the child, will have company." "May I be granted, then, respected Sir Trevize, the boon of further conversation with thee, mayhap of this old earth of which thou pratest?" asked Trevize. "Nay," said Hiroko, laughing, "but thou dost well to mock me. I showed thee but discourtesy ere now in answering thy question on this matter. I would fain make amends." Trevize said, "Miss Hiroko, I felt no discourtesy, but if it will make you feel better, I will gladly speak with you." He followed her out of the dining-room to a small pink plaster structure that she identified as her home. She walked in, and Trevize followed. A heavy, water-repellent curtain served as a front door, and she drew it shut. "I will leave it in place now, and all will then know that I am within, but not available." "But anyone could shove it aside." "With disregard of the wishes of the occupant?" Hiroko looked shocked. "Are such things done on thy world? It would be barbarous." Trevize grinned. "I only asked." He saw no signs of artificial lighting, and wondered if Alphonse had to wake at sunrise and go to bed at sunset. He was about to ask, but Hiroko spoke first. "Is Madame Bliss thy woman companion?" Trevize said cautiously, "Do you mean by that? Is she my sexual partner?" Hiroko colored. "I pray thee have regard for the decencies of polite conversation. But I do mean private pleasantry. No, she is the woman companion of my learned friend. But thou art the younger, and the more goodly." "Well, thank you for your opinion, but it is not Bliss's opinion. She likes Dr. Pellerat much more than she likes me." Hiroko nodded her head wisely. "Might we, then, be pleasant with each other?" Trevize smiled. "Did you bring me here to your dwelling, Hiroko, that it might come to this?" "Yes. It would be both my hostess' duty of courtesy, and it would be my wish, too." "If that's the case, I will admit it is my wish, too," Trevize said. "In fact, I would like very much to oblige you in this. I would, fain do thee pleasure." That evening, in the temporary living quarters that had been assigned to the Outworlders, Pellerat filled Trevize and Bliss in on his meeting with Manoli. "I was with him for 3 hours, and Hiroko did not exaggerate. It was a virtual monologue. Just tell me everything the garrulous old man had to say to you, in brief, of course." Pellerat cleared his throat uneasily. "Yes, certainly, old chap. I'll try to make a connected and chronological tale out of it. Earth was the original home of humanity. It continued so until hyperspatial travel was invented. Then the spacer worlds were founded. They broke away from Earth, developed their own cultures, and came to despise and oppress the mother planet. Eventually, Earth managed to regain its freedom, though Manoli did not explain the exact manner in which this was done. He went only so far as to mention a culture hero named Elijah Bailey. But the references were so characteristic of the habit of attributing to one figure the accomplishment of generations." Bliss interrupted gently. "Yes, Pell dear, we understand that part." Pellerat paused. "Of course, my apologies. Earth initiated a second wave of settlements, founding many new worlds in a new fashion. The new group of settlers proved more vigorous than the spacers, outpaced them, defeated them, and eventually established the Galactic Empire. During the course of the wars between the settlers and the spacers, conflicts as Manoli seemed to prefer to call them, the Earth became radioactive." "Well, how did he say the radioactivity began on Earth?" Trevize interrupted impatiently. "He didn't in any detail. He said only that the spacers were responsible. But then I gather that the spacers were the demons on whom the people of Earth blamed all misfortune."
As Earth's radioactivity became more intense, its cities, which existed for the most part underground, shrank, and the remnants of the population clung to the few relatively habitable regions. The Empire, in a fit of benevolence, finally transplanted those last people from Earth to a new world of their own, to this world, in short. There have been few visitors here. Occasionally, at long intervals, a ship has come, as ours did, but no one from outside has ever stayed long. That's it.
Did you ask Manoli where Earth was located?
Of course I asked that. He said he didn't know, and also that, in his opinion, it was wrong even to try to find it. He said that at the rate at which the radioactivity continued to increase, Earth must be burning so intensely now that no one would dare approach it.
Nonsense, Trevize said firmly. A planet cannot continuously increase in radioactivity. Radioactivity can only decrease. Apparently records of Earth haven't just been removed and destroyed. This tale of radioactivity has been spread in a further effort to discourage anyone from looking. Bliss said, "Since you seem to think the nearby star is Earth's sun, why not simply go to the nearby star and see if you can find Earth?" Trevize said, "Because those on Earth must be, in their way, extraordinarily powerful, and I would prefer to approach with some knowledge of this world and its inhabitants." At this point there was a scratching outside the door curtain, and they all heard Hiroko's soft voice calling out, "Please, it is I." Trevize pulled the curtain aside, and Hiroko entered quickly. Her cheeks were wet with tears. "What is it?" asked Bliss. Hiroko clutched at Trevize. "Go thou, all of you. Take the ship away, away from Alpha, while it is yet dark." "But why?" asked Trevize. "Because else they will kill you." Bliss said sharply, "Why do your people do this?" "For our safety, they say in council. We are few, and have much. We do not wish outworlders to intrude. If one cometh, and then reporteth our lot, others will come, and so when once in a long while a ship arriveth, we must make certain it leaveth not. In return for my warning you, I ask only that none of you ever speak of this world, that none else may know of it." "We will not speak of it," Trevize promised. Trevize slowly pulled aside the curtain. The stars shone. High in the sky now was Cassiopeia, with what might be Earth's sun burning brightly at its lower tip. Bliss, holding Fallon by the hand, took the lead as they hurried toward the spaceship. After 2 jumps, the star that might well have been Earth's sun was 10 billion kilometers away. It was then that Trevize pointed out that they could already see 2 of the sun's planets on the view screen. From their measured diameters and from the spectrum of the reflected light, they are clearly gas giants. Janoff, it is correct, isn't it, that Earth's sun is supposed to have 4 gas giants? "According to legends, yes," said Pellerat. "The nearest of the 4 to the sun is said to be the largest, and the second nearest supposedly has large, prominent rings." "Well," said Trevize, "the 2 we see may be the farthest from the sun, and the 2 nearer ones may well be on the other side of the sun and too far from us to be easily located against the background of stars. We'll have to move closer." His mind directed the computer, and the star field on the view screen changed. Earth's sun brightened sharply, and then moved off the view screen as the computer scanned the sky for another gas giant. It did so successfully. All 3 onlookers stiffened and stared. "Incredible," gasped Bliss. A gas giant was in view, seen at an angle that allowed most of it to be sunlit. About it there curved a broad and brilliant ring of material, tipped so as to catch the sunlight on the side being viewed. "Is that sort of thing common?" asked Bliss, awed. "No," said Trevize. "Almost every gas giant has rings of debris, but they tend to be faint and narrow. I never saw anything like this, or heard of it either."
Pellerat said. "There are legends about Earth that tell of just such a ringed giant nearby. This must be the planetary system containing Earth," Trevize said. "I'm prepared to believe just about anything your legends say now. This is the 6th planet. According to legend, Earth would be the 3rd. Is that right?" "Right, Golan." "And we still haven't been stopped," Trevize observed with some surprise. "Gaia stopped us when we approached." Bliss said, "You were closer to Gaia when you were stopped." "Ah," said Trevize, "but it's my opinion that Earth is more powerful than Gaia, and I take this to be a good sign. If we are not stopped, it may be that Earth does not object to our approach. Or no one stops us because there is no life on Earth," said Pellerat. The gas giants were behind them. An asteroid belt lay just inside the gas giant nearest the sun. Inside the asteroid belt were 4 planets, which Trevize was studying. "The 3rd is the largest," he told Pellerat. "It has an atmosphere. It could be habitable." "You think it might be Earth, then?" "Think," said Trevize. "I don't have to think. It is Earth. It has the giant satellite you told me of. Here, look at it under magnification." Pellerat looked at the screen and saw 2 crescents, one distinctly larger and brighter than the other. Pellerat's face, too, broke into a wide smile. Trevize said, "Take my word for it, Janov, it's unique. We're looking at something that is practically a double planet, and there are few other habitable planets that have anything more than pebbles orbiting them. That world you're looking at must be Earth. It cannot conceivably be anything else. We found it, Janov. We've found it." They were on the 2nd day of their coasting progress towards Earth, when Fallum asked over dinner, "Will I ever see Jembe again, Bliss? Tell me the truth." Bliss said, "You may, if we ever return to Solaria." "But now we go to Earth, isn't that right?" Fallum asked. "Yes," said Bliss, "we are going to Earth." "Why?" Fallum asked. Bliss said lightly, "Wouldn't anyone wish to see the world of their ancestors?" "I think there's more to it. You all seem so concerned." "But we've never been there before. We don't know what to expect." "I think it is more than that." Having finished eating, she returned to the bedroom, and Trevize looked after her with clear distaste. "Does that thing read minds?" "Don't call her a thing, Trevize," Bliss said sharply. "Does she read minds? You ought to be able to tell." "No, she doesn't. Nor can Gaia. Nor can the second foundationers. We can detect, interpret, and to some extent manipulate emotions, but no one can read minds." "Perhaps," said Trevize, "she is manipulating you so that you remain ignorant of the fact that she can." "You don't know everything, Bliss, so don't be overconfident," said Trevize sullenly. "She's learning too fast. She already speaks galactic perfectly, and with virtually a full vocabulary. I think that Solarian child is dangerous, and that we should get rid of her." "Her intelligence is to be admired, not envied," Bliss countered. "I do not envy her. I fear her." For the next 36 hours, Trevize spent little time away from the computer, until Pellerat, smelling trouble, finally asked rather awkwardly, "How are you, Golan?" His friend's first answer was a curt, "Leave me alone." But then Pellerat said, "Please, Golan, tell me what's going on." And Trevize answered despondently, "What everyone has been telling us is true." He gestured at the view screen, where the night side of Earth eclipsed the sun. It was a solid circle of black against the starry sky, its circumference outlined by a broken orange curve. Pellerat said, "Is that orange the radioactivity?" "No, that's just refracted sunlight. You can't see the radioactivity. The various radiations, even the gamma rays, are absorbed by the atmosphere. However, they do set up feeble secondary radiations, and the computer can detect them and create an analog on the screen. Look, and the black circle glowed with a faint, blotchy blue. The planet is uninhabitable. The last bacterium, the last virus, is long gone. "Can we explore it?" asked Pellerat. "I mean, in space suits." "For a few hours, before we come down with irreversible radiation sickness." "And what do we do, Golan?" Trevize looked at Pellerat expressionlessly. "I would like to go back to Terminus, resign from the Council, and let the galaxy go as it will." "Surely you can't mean it, Golan?" Trevize stared at him for a while, and then he drew a long breath. "No, I don't. But what can I do next? What is there further to look for?" For 4 successive meals, Pellerat and Bliss saw Trevize only at meals. The rest of the time he was either in the pilot room or in his bedroom. At the 4th meal, however, his gloom seemed to have lifted, and he said to Pellerat, "Tell me again what the people of Earth called their satellite." "Moon, in at least one of Earth's languages," Pellerat answered. "Luna in another language, probably many other names, too." "Moon. Well, that's simple enough." He chewed on it for a moment, and then he said, "We tend to ignore satellites, Janov. They're usually such little things. But this one is different. It has a diameter of about 3,500 kilometers. It's a world." "A world? But it can't be habitable. It has no atmosphere. I can tell that just by looking at it on the view screen. No clouds, and therefore its curve against space is sharp, and so is the inner curve that bounds the light and dark hemispheres." Trevize nodded. "You're getting to be a seasoned space traveler, Janov. You're right. But that only means the moon's not habitable on its unprotected surface. What about underground? We know that Trontor was underground. Comparellin has much of its capital city underground. The Solarian mansion was almost entirely underground. It's a very common state of affairs." "But, Golan, in every one of those cases the surface was habitable too. Is it possible to live underground when the surface is uninhabitable?" "Come, Janov, think. Where are we living right now? The Far Star is a tiny world that has an uninhabitable surface, yet inside we live in perfect comfort. So consider the moon, a giant spaceship." "With a crew inside?" "Yes, millions of people for all we know, and plants and animals and advanced technology. Look, Janov, doesn't it make sense? If Earth, in its last days, could send out a party of settlers to a planet orbiting Alpha Centauri, and if they could terraform it and seed its oceans, could Earth not also send a party to its satellite and terraform the interior?" Pellerat said reluctantly, "I suppose so." "It would be done. If Earth has something to hide, why send it over a parsec away, when it could be hidden on a world less than 100 millionth the distance to Alpha? And the moon would be a more efficient hiding place from the psychological standpoint. No one thinks of satellites in connection with life. Until now, I didn't." "But see here, old man, if there's something hidden under the surface of the moon, how do we find it? There must be millions of square kilometers of surface. And what would we be looking for? An airlock? An opening?" "Put that way, it would seem rather a task. But we're not just looking for objects. We're looking for life, and for intelligent life at that. And we've got Bliss, and detecting intelligent life is her talent, isn't it?" The moon was a wasteland, a monotonous panorama of crater rings and mountainous areas, and of shadows black against the sunlight. As they approached the night side, these shadows grew longer and finally fused together. For a while behind them, peaks glittered in the sun like fat stars, far outshining their brethren in the sky. Then they, too, disappeared, and below was only the fainter light of Earth in the sky, a large bluish-white sphere. Trevize could see that it was useless to hope to find any way into the inhabited interior, if that existed, by mere eye inspection, and he turned to Bliss, who sat beside him. "Do you detect anything else?"
"No," she whispered. "There was just that one faint whiff. You'd better take me back there. Do you know where that region was?"
"The computer knows," Trevize answered. It was like zeroing in on a target, shifting this way and that, and then finding it. The area in question was deep in the night side, and except that the earth shone fairly low in the sky and gave the surface a ghostly, ashen glow between the shadows, there was nothing to make out.
"It's there," Bliss said at last, "and the feeling I get is a welcoming one. I detect strong intelligence, except—"
"Except what?"
"Shh, don't disturb me. Let me concentrate." Then she said in faint, elated surprise, "It's not human, but it's not quite robotic either."
"It has to be one or the other."
"Neither. It's not human, and yet it's not like any robot I've detected before."
Pellerat said, "I would like to see that."
He nodded his head vigorously, his eyes wide with pleasure.
"It would be exciting, something new."
"Something new," Trevize muttered, with a sudden lift of his own spirits, and a flash of unexpected insight seemed to illuminate the interior of his skull.
Down they sank toward the moon's surface, in what was almost jubilation. Even Fallum had joined them now, and, with the abandonment of a youngster, was hugging herself with unbearable joy at the thought, however mistaken, that she might at last be returning to Solaria. They were just above the tops of the rolling hills now, gliding toward a cliff that raised its menacing height as a barrier against them. And then, suddenly, a section of the cliff fell away, and a corridor, gleaming in artificial light, opened before them. The ship slowed to a crawl, apparently of its own accord, and slid neatly into the opening, which closed behind them. It halted in a gigantic hall, and all aboard rushed to the airlock eagerly. It occurred to none of them, not even to Trevize, to check whether there might be a breathable atmosphere outside, or any atmosphere at all. There was air, however, breathable and comfortable. They looked about them with the pleased air of people who had somehow come home, and it was only after a while that they became aware of a tall, grave-looking man who was waiting politely for them to approach. His hair was bronze in color and cut short. Although he seemed sturdy and vigorous, there was just the same an air of weariness about him. It was Fallum who reacted first. With a loud scream she ran toward the man, crying, "Gemby! Gemby!" She never slackened her pace, and when she was close enough, the man stooped and lifted her up. She threw her arms about his neck, still gasping, "Gemby!" The others approached more soberly, and Trevize said, "We ask pardon, sir. This child has lost her protector. How it came to fasten on you is a puzzle, since it is seeking a robot, a mechanical—" "I greet you all in friendship," the man said in perfect galactic standard, and he seemed unmistakably friendly, despite his gravity of expression. "As for this child, she shows perhaps a greater sensitivity than you think, for I am a robot. My name is Daniil Olivaw." Before long, Daniil Olivaw disengaged from Fallum and sent her and Bliss off to explore the grounds. Then he turned to Trevize and Pellerat and said, "They are not foundationers, sirs," as though that explained it all. "One is Gaia, and one is a spacer," he added. Trevize and Pellerat remained silent while they were led to simply designed chairs under a tree. They seated themselves at a gesture from their host, and when he sat down too in a perfectly human movement, Trevize said, "Are you truly a robot?" "Truly, sir," said Daniil. Pellerat's face seemed to shine with joy. "There are references to a robot named Daniil in the old legends. Are you named in his honor?"
I am that robot. It is not a legend.
"Oh, no," said Pellerat. "If you are that robot, you would have to be thousands of years old."
20,000. For a moment Trevize was speechless. Then he asked, "Are there human beings on the moon as well, or only robots?" "The intelligent beings are all robots, more or less like myself, but you will see none of them. This mansion is used by myself only. It is modeled on one I lived in 20,000 years ago on the spacer world of Aurora." "The one with the—" Trevize paused. "Yes, sir, the one with the dogs." "How do you come to be here, then, if you lived at first on Aurora?" Trevize asked. "Sir, it was to salvage what I could of Earth, after it began to turn radioactive. At first there was another robot, named Giscard, with me, who could sense and adjust minds." "As Bliss can?" "Yes, sir. We failed, in a way, and Giscard ceased to operate. Before the cessation, however, he made it possible for me to have his talent, and left it to me to care for the galaxy, for Earth particularly."
"Why Earth particularly?"
"In part because of a man named Elijah Bailey, an Earthsman. The galaxy might never have been settled without him. In his honor, I did my best to salvage what I could of Earth after it began to turn radioactive. My fellow robots were distributed over the galaxy in an effort to influence key people. I could never adjust human minds entirely as I wished, but there was always the chance that I would do harm to the humans who were adjusted. I was bound, you see, and am bound to this day, by the laws of robotics."
"Yes," Trevize led him on.
"The first law is this, sir. A robot may not injure a human being, or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. The second law, a robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. The third law, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Naturally, I give you these laws in the approximation of human language. In actual fact, they represent complicated mathematical configurations of our positronic brain paths."
"I see," said Trevize.
"All through galactic history, I tried to ameliorate the worst aspects of the strife and disaster that perpetually made itself felt in the galaxy. I may have succeeded on occasion and to some extent, but if you know your galactic history, you will know that I did not succeed often."
"That much I know," said Trevize with a wry smile.
Just before Giscard's end, he conceived of a robotic law to supersede even the first law and modify all three laws. We called it the zeroth law. A robot may not injure humanity, or through inaction allow humanity to come to harm. It paralleled the first law, though, of course, insofar as it substituted humanity for individual human beings, it led to conflict. A human being, after all, is a concrete object. Injury to a person can be estimated and judged. Humanity is an abstraction. How do we deal with it?"
"Wait," said Pellerat. "You could convert humanity into a single organism. Gaia."
"That is what I tried to do, sir. I engineered the founding of Gaia on the assumption that, if humanity could be made a single organism, it would become a concrete object, and it could be dealt with. It was, however, not as easy to create a superorganism as I had hoped. In the first place, it could not be done unless human beings valued the superorganism more than their individuality, and I had to find a mind cast that would allow that. It was a long time before I thought of the laws of robotics."
"Ah, then, the Gaians are robots," Trevize said. "I had suspected that from the start."
In that case you suspected incorrectly, sir. They are human beings, but they have brains firmly inculcated with the equivalent of the laws of robotics. They have to value life, really value it. And even after that was done, there remained a serious flaw. A superorganism consisting of human beings only is unstable. So other animals, plants, and then the organic world had to be added. The smallest superorganism that is truly stable is a world large and complex enough to have a stable ecology. It took a long time to understand this, and thus it was only in this last century that Gaia was fully established, and that it became ready to move on to Galaxia. And you needed me to make the decision for you? Is that it, Daniel? Yes, sir. The laws of robotics would not allow me or Gaia to make the decision and chance harm to humanity. And meanwhile, 5 centuries ago, when it seemed that I would never work out methods for getting round all the difficulties that stood in the way of establishing Gaia, I turned to the second best and helped bring about the science of psychohistory. Pellerat said, "Wait, I think I see something. Are you part of Gaia yourself, Daniel? Would that be how you knew about the dogs on Aurora, through Bliss?" "In a way, sir, you are correct. I am associated with Gaia, though I am not part of it." Trevize looked steadily at the robot for a moment. "And did you use your awareness through Bliss in order to interfere with events on our journey?" Daniel sighed in a curiously human fashion. "I could not do much, sir. The laws of robotics always hold me back. And yet I lightened the load on Bliss's mind, so that she might deal with the dilemmas that arose with greater dispatch and with less harm to herself. In addition, I influenced the women you met to look with favor on you, so that you might continue your journey." "I might have guessed that," mumbled Trevize. "And now I am here. What is it you want of me? To confirm my decision in favor of Galaxia?" Daniel's expressionless face somehow managed to express despair. "No, sir. The mere decision is no longer enough. I brought you here as best I could in my present condition, for something far more desperate. I am dying." "Dying," Trevize responded. "Can a machine die?" "I can cease to exist, sir. Call it by whatever word you wish. I am old. There is no physical part of my body that has escaped replacement, not only once, but many times. My positronic brain has been replaced on 5 different occasions, with each time the contents of my earlier brain etched into the newer one to the last positron. Each time the new brain had a greater capacity and complexity. But the more advanced and complex the brain, the more unstable it is, and the more quickly it deteriorates. I am experiencing now a rapid decline in my ability to reach decisions, and an even more rapid decline in my ability to test and influence brains at hyperspatial distances. Nor can I design a 6th brain. Further miniaturization will run up against the blank wall of the uncertainty principle, and further complexity will but assure decay almost at once." Pellerat seemed desperately troubled. "But surely, Daniel, Gaia can carry on without you, now that Trevize has judged and selected Galaxia." "The process simply took too long, sir," said Daniel. "I had to wait for Gaia to be fully established, despite the unanticipated difficulties that arose. By the time a human being, Mr. Trevize, was located, who was capable of making the key decision, it was too late. over a period of years, the humaniform robots that have been working with me have been, one by one, called home. Their last tasks have been to remove all references to Earth in the planetary archives, and without myself and my fellow robots in full play, Gaia will lack the essential tools to carry through the development of Galaxia in less than an inordinate period of time. But if you knew all this when I made my decision, as you obviously must have, then why the charade? I have scoured the galaxy searching for Earth, and what I thought of as its secret, not knowing the secret was you, in order that I might confirm the decision. Well, I have confirmed it. I know now that Galaxia is absolutely essential, and it appears to be all for nothing. Why could you not have left the galaxy to itself, and me to myself? Daniil said, Because, sir, I have been searching for a way out, and I have been carrying on in the hope that I might find one. I think I have. I could merge my own brain with a human brain that is not affected by the three laws, and will not only add capacity to my brain, but add a whole new level of abilities as well. That is why I have brought you here. Trevize looked appalled. You mean you plan to have a human brain lose its individuality so that you can achieve a two-brain Gaia? Yes, sir. It would not make me immortal, but it might enable me to live long enough to establish Galaxia. And you brought me here for that? You want my independence of the three laws and my judgment made part of you? I need something else. See, he pointed and said, I've called her back. Bliss was returning, walking happily with a bounce to her steps. Pellerat rose convulsively to his feet. Bliss? Oh, no! Do not be alarmed, Dr. Pellerat, said Daniil. I cannot use Bliss. That would merge me with Gaia, and I must remain independent of Gaia. But in that case, who? And Trevize, looking at the slim figure running after Bliss, said, The robot has wanted Phalum all along, Janoff. We couldn't pass beyond the bounds of the estate, Bliss explained, but it all reminded me very much of Solaria. Phalum, of course, is convinced that it is Solaria. She looked across to the middle distance, where Phalum now sat with an attentive and grave Daniil. Pellerat cleared his throat. Actually, Bliss, I think that Phalum will be staying with Daniil permanently. Indeed. Bliss made as though to walk in Daniil's direction, but Pellerat caught her arm. Bliss, dear, you can't. He's more powerful than Gaia even now, and Phalum must stay with him if Galaxia is to come into existence. Let me explain. And Golan, please correct me if I get anything wrong. Bliss listened to the account, her expression sinking into something close to despair. At the end, Bliss's cheeks were flushed and her eyes moist. She said, I suppose that the robot maneuvered our trip to Earth in such a way as to make us pass through Solaria in order to pick up a child for his use. Trevize shrugged. He may simply have taken advantage of opportunities presented to him. I don't think his powers are strong enough at the moment to make complete puppets of us at hyperspatial distances. Pellerat, seeing that Bliss was sad, held out his hand to her, a bit timidly. She tried to smile. Perhaps when we get back to Gaia, room will be found in the global organism for a child for me, and I will place Phalum in the syllables of its name. Now Daniil, as though aware that the matter was settled, was walking toward them, with Phalum skipping along at his side. The youngster broke into a run and reached them first. She went up to Bliss. Thank you for taking me home to Chemby again, and for taking care of me while we were on the ship. I shall always remember you. And she flung herself at Bliss, and the two held each other tightly. I hope you will always be happy, said Bliss. I will remember you too, Phalum dear. Even Trevize managed to say, Good luck, Phalum. Daniel said, "I thank you all, sirs and madam, for what you have done, each in your own way. You are free to go now, for your search is ended. As for my own work, it will be ended too, soon enough, and successfully now." But Bliss said, "Wait, Trevize, are you still of the mind that the proper future for humanity is Galaxia, as opposed to a vast conglomerate of isolates?" Trevize tightened his lips. "The decision is for Galaxia. There is no further doubt in my mind." Bliss remained motionless for a time, as though she were allowing the information to reach all parts of Gaia. Then she said, "Why?" Trevize said, "I knew from the start that there were two possible futures for humanity, Galaxia or else the Second Empire of Selden's plan. Since I had already decided in favor of Galaxia, I felt I must be subliminally aware of flaws in Selden's plan, and I thought for some reason that if I found Earth, I would learn what they were. I had no real reason to expect to find a solution once I found Earth, but I was desperate. And then when Bliss said she sensed an intelligence that was neither quite human nor quite robotic, and Janov referred to it as something new, that served as a trigger for something new of my own, a new thought. It is a third axiom of psychohistory so fundamental that no one has ever bothered to mention it before. The two known axioms, you recall, deal with human beings, and they are based on the unspoken axiom that human beings are the only intelligent species in the galaxy. If there were something new, if there were other species of intelligence widely different in nature, then their behavior would not be described accurately by the mathematics of psychohistory. Pellerat said, "Yes, I see. But as devil's advocate, old chap—" "Yes, go on." "Robots?" said Bliss. "Gaia?" Pellerat thought a while, then said hesitantly, "Robots are the creations of human beings, and Gaia is the creation of robots. And both robots and Gaia, insofar as they must be bound by the three laws, have no choice but to yield to human will. It follows, then, that humanity is the only significant species of intelligence in the galaxy. The only form of intelligence in the galaxy. Yet we speak so much and so often of the galaxy that it is all but impossible for us to see that this is not enough. The galaxy is not the universe. There are other galaxies." Pellerat and Bliss stirred uneasily. Daniel listened with benign gravity, his hand slowly stroking Thalam's hair. Trevize continued, "Our own galaxy has only one species of intelligence great enough to develop a technological society. But what do we know of the other galaxies? In some of the others, perhaps even in all of them, there may be other intelligent species, competing with each other, and each incomprehensible to us. But what if, in some galaxy, one species gains domination over the rest, and then has time to consider the possibility of penetrating other galaxies? An invader that finds us divided against ourselves, should an invader ever come, will either dominate us all or destroy us all, and that is why the only true defense is to produce Galaxia, which cannot be turned against itself, and which can meet invaders with maximum power." Bliss said, "The picture you paint is a frightening one. Will we have time to form Galaxia?" Trevize looked up, as though to penetrate the thick layer of moon rock that separated them from the surface and from space, as though to force himself to see those far, distant galaxies moving slowly through unimaginable vistas of space. He said, "In all human history, no other intelligence has impinged on us, to our knowledge. This need only continue a few more centuries, perhaps little more than 1/10,000th of the time civilization has already existed, and we will be safe, after all." And here Trevize felt a sudden twinge of trouble that he forced himself to disregard. It is not as though we had the enemy already here and among us. And he did not look down to meet the brooding eyes of Phalum, hermaphroditic, transductive, different, as they rested unfathomably on him. This is David Dukes. We hope you've enjoyed this production of Foundation and Earth by Isaac Asimov. It was produced by David Rapkin, directed by Bob Walter, mixed directed by Lars Hoel. Production copyright 1994 Bantam Doubleday Dell Audio Publishing. All rights reserved. The book, Foundation and Earth, is available wherever Bantam books are sold.